Welcome to our webinar covering how Okta's event hooks and triggers can be used to increase your overall security and help you complete your audits. We're really lucky to have Senior Solutions Consultant David Barrish of Okta. David is an Okta certified admin professional and administrator. Going over today's agenda, we just want to make sure that we cover everything. So we're going to start things off with Garrett, the CEO of Okta. He's going to be outlining the problem.
CEO of YouAttest.
Oh, sorry. CEO of YouAttest. Yeah, not that big, but he's going to be outlining the problems and risks that companies are facing around access and what companies are really facing today. Next, we're going to go over to David, and he's going to demonstrate and outline just a more in-depth overview of Okta and its capabilities, mainly around event triggers. Then Garrett's going to talk about how Okta and YouAttest can be used together to solve these security problems around privilege creep. Finally, I'm going to be going over a quick demo, just showing how the triggers are working. And then we're going to open it up to a Q&A. So we'll have an opportunity to get to all your questions. So if you have them, definitely hold on to them. We're going to get to them at the very end of this. But thank you for joining. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Garrett, CEO of YouAttest.
Thank you, Austin. Good deal. Yes, I'm going to be talking about privilege escalation and privilege creep. Why? Because I'm first going to introduce why we should care. Not just at Garrett, the NIST standards, the ISO standards, but why we should care. And everyone, hope you got good 15, 20 minutes. Should be a great webinar. I want to thank Dave before I start on this. And also let's hope for the best. The latest SoCal wildfires are 15 miles away. So I think I'll be good for 15 or 20 minutes. Let's go, Austin. Privilege creep. And it's really something important. I want to start with privilege creep on this slide. It's not just that privilege creep is malicious. Real hacking, the real world of hacking, understanding a hacker kill chain and real hacks don't just result because there's a bad guy that took advantage of a really well-built system. No, that's not the way hacking works. Hacking is, is about taking advantage of our flaws. We build this stuff, right? And out of the box, it's pretty good. Yes, there might be some code hacks, might be some vulnerabilities or whatever, but what happens, and this is what I'm talking about privilege creep, what happens in our systems once we deploy them, we set up our roles, we set up our accesses, and what happens? I'm an IT admin, used to do it for a real estate shop. Someone rushes to you and says, Bob needs this access. He needs it today. I don't have time. Or this group doesn't have access to this application. We don't have time to go through the process. That's what happens in real IT. So privilege creep is both the benign and the malicious concept of unnecessary privilege going to users. Privilege escalation is usually referred to as the hack and the elevated privileges. And that's your standard, do a Metasploit hack, get on someone's PC or device or whatever, and then use some vulnerability to escalate your privileges. Either way, and there's a pause and breathe, either way, what we need is a system that says whether the privilege creep or privilege escalation is benign or malicious, we, the calm people in the organizations, the ones running the IT or auditing the IT, should be able to monitor this. Keep going. The result of privilege escalation, both benign and malicious, is kind of obvious. What really is obvious, and I'll even talk some use cases, is data breaches. Because hackers aren't getting on our systems, because they're bored. Yeah, there's a small percentage of those, but that's another discussion altogether. Most of them are doing it for profit. And what we have, we all know, you've seen the LinkedIn post and everything, data is money, is RPHR, PII data. And credential theft involved with over privileges, because you're not going to be able to steal relevant data with low privileges. You usually have to get an escalation, which I'll talk in some use cases. That's why we care. Okay. Also, the other thing that you have to remember when we're over privileging users, what's one of the key points of the kill chain? The key point of the kill chain is what you want to do is to stay persistent. That is, you get in once, right? But it's not like, okay, I'm in, I gotta scramble, I gotta steal everything. No, you set up backdoors, you set up mechanisms that you can come back in and then keep searching and keep digging. Persistency is the key to a big hacking, good hacking. And what's relevant is that we, the people at the gates, we have to make sure that the access we give to people, both the legitimate accounts, isn't overprivileged, because privileged accounts can set up backdoors. Next. Okay, then a fun part. Okay, the use cases. Okay, 100 million users by Capital One. Not picking on Capital One. I mean, you can go to information is beautiful and just have fun and go through each one of them. I chose these two. 100 million users. Okay, it was an S3 AWS storage hack. Kind of bring that up just because, you know, the cloud's just as vulnerable as our internals, and our internals are just as vulnerable as the cloud is. Okay, let's just, you know, call a spade there. Okay, what was relevant though is they used stolen keys and then added privileges. Once again, the idea is, let's get an account, let's get an access, and let's add the privileges in some way so that I can actually transgress more data and then extract more data. Okay, and they did that in AWS. Next, this one's an oldie a goodie, but it's probably the most cited on the webinar circuit. Okay, the target hack. Okay, we all know the target hack. We all know how bad it was for the company. We all know, you know, how much it cost them, et cetera, et cetera. But here's a bit of a fact that I found in Discovery. The audit showed they had over 440,000 overprivileged accounts. Okay. All right. That's not picking on Target. That's picking on the way we do business. That is true. We go there and someone screams and someone says, okay, I need this. Okay. Once that's done, who's reviewing? Who's keeps reviewing? Who is actually signed off on that? Where is the system of accuracy and completeness on that, where we know the changes that were made and then we quantify them and we approve them? Let's start getting to the answers.
So hello, everybody. Dave Barrish here. I'm a senior solutions consultant with Okta. Been with Okta just over a year, but I've been in the identity access management space for 20 plus years. Next slide, please. So talk a little bit about Okta. The Okta platform is a single platform for both your internal employee workforce and your external customer and partner use cases. And it covers everything from a universal directory, which is a single place to store all of your users. It covers single sign-on, that's both federation, the federation standards of SAML and WS-Fed, as well as password vaulting, if you do need to store passwords for legacy applications that haven't been updated yet to federation standards. Also covers risk and policy-based multi-factor authentication. Where is the user coming from? What type of device are they coming in from? Do you want to require multi-factor authentication all the time or only under certain circumstances? Full user lifecycle management, advanced server access, or protecting that command line, so protecting access to your servers, and the access gateway, which is essentially an Okta proxy that you can protect your legacy web applications that are sitting behind your firewall. And again, they'll probably never be federation enabled. On the external side, it's really about providing OAuth security for your applications, for your externally facing applications in most use cases, as well as providing all that functionality that I already mentioned, a single place to store all of those users, single sign-on, including social login and federation between partner sites. That adaptive multi-factor, maybe you're not going to require multi-factor authentication when that customer, that partner first registers, but as they add more information, as they're getting more value, you may want to add multi-factor on there. So it's a policy that you can apply on top of that. Next slide, please. And the Okta Cloud Security Platform is fully extensible. If we start from the top of the slide here, this is the Okta integration network, and there are over 7,000 integrations. And these integrations mean that you simply have to go into the Okta integration network within the administrative GUI, full documentation about how to do the integration between these applications. And if your application isn't one of the 7,000 that's already listed here, we have templates and wizards so that you can integrate a new application that you do need to do password vaulting for, or you do need to do a SAML sign-on integration with. So build out that middle, please. The other part of Okta is we can take in information and exchange information with external applications. So a very common use case would be we will take in information about external threats. We will take in information about external devices, whether a device is trusted based on whether they're listed in your MDM solution, or whether they're listed as somebody who is able to access a particular application based on a firewall rule or any other type of information that you want to pull in. Build that out, please. The next thing we want to look at here, and really the core of our conversation here, is the Events API. Okta has a number of event hooks and triggers, and these can be used to trigger something that happens externally to Okta. These can happen when a new user is registered, or when Okta detects an identity change, because remember, Okta becomes your central identity store. That universal directory is pulling in information from all of your other identity sources. So being the central identity store, Okta will see when users are added, when their privileges are escalated, when they're added to roles, when they are added to groups. And each of those can trigger an event hook. And those event hooks can trigger things in external. So for example, to trigger an audit to happen, somebody's privileges were escalated, that privilege access needs to be reviewed. Okta event hooks can be used to trigger those external. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Austin and Garrick, and we can talk about how those Okta event hooks can be used in order to kick off your security audits.
Very good. And let me go before I continue. That's a great overview, and it's the platform. It's the platform. That's what attracted YouAttest to build this out into Okta, because Okta is doing all the heavy lifting. They got the framework. You've got your SSO. You've got your two-factor, but most relevantly, you got the hooks into the actual products. Okay, and let me just add, write those questions. I know Austin's monitoring whatever. Let me know questions come in. We'll talk about those at the end. Okay, Austin, take it away. Next slide. Okay, all right. Like I said, the first one I was going to go into is, I call it, basically the black hat world. Why should I care about this topic? Okay, now that was the real reason, escalation. This is the actual regulations and the guidances around them. And NIST, just most people know on a call, but it is NIST is the government body standards in the U.S. The Department of Commerce came out many years ago and said, hey, we got to start coming up with best practices. And those practices, the PRAC-6, then get put into the regulatory guidances. The first, the most important to remember, why YouAttest exists, why governance exists, is to enact the concept of principle of least privilege. That is what we all want to do. When there's no one's bad in IT admin. I don't believe that. What it is let's start with the concept that what we want to do is give people the least amount of privilege for their activities. And then we'll show you how. Next. The other one, which is really important, we have to remember, and in this guidance is that we have to adhere to, is PRAC-1, identity and access must be reviewed. Why do you review it? It's kind of redundant. It's kind of the how do you enact the first one, right? You impose least privileges by ensuring that the changes and the escalation of privileges that made are actually reviewed. Next. Okay, now the money shot. And David talked about the most advanced identity system in the world. Most advanced identity system and capability is the Okta identity system. Okay, so how do we take that and meet those last two principles? Okay, we monitor the directory of record. Now, oftentimes the directory of record is straight out your Okta, or it's your AD or LDAP on premise that is synced up to Okta. Either way, we plug in YouAttest, and then we let us, the people who care about audit, the people who care about governance, okay, we let us go through the YouAttest tool, and that's really important point there. The YouAttest tool is for us, the people in governance, okay? The Okta piece is 100% for the identity management people, the IT directors group, etc. But you in governance, this is your tool. So you go to the YouAttest tool and you basically say, okay, these are the accounts I want to watch, and these are the events I want to watch. And very, very important about the segregation of duties. Not saying you get to change the rules and the roles in the Okta piece. That's what the IT side is. You get to monitor, you get to approve, you get to delegate on approval, and then triggers occur. Next. Here's the process. Many words, we'll share these slides, share the deck, the whole 9 yards. But the concept is people in governance select which groups they care about, either the Okta groups or the ADU groups, right? You care about which events. Then when an event occurs, something occurs, Garrett gets put into the admin group. Fine, that could be legit, that could not be. The product automatically creates an attestation campaign. An attestation campaign is what? It is an email that goes out to someone or an alert that goes out to someone that says, hey, you've got to go through it and review this. And you review the change, and the product gives you the ability to approve, to delegate. Someone else should actually approve this. And even if you turn it on, revoke in the Okta context. Okay. And then this is what's really important to the governance side. At the end of the quarter or the end of your review period, you just gather up those reports, 10, 20, 100, I don't know how many you have. And then you go to your wonderful auditors, and they are wonderful, and you say, I know what you're going to ask me, because what is in my brain? Change is audit. What has changed in the last 90 days? Okay, these are the changes. These are the attestations. Okay, saves. I've done a TCO analysis of 7 companies, hundreds of hours, because we're collecting, we're quantifying, and reporting all in one step. Next. Okay, and let's some things on the difference. What's being done in the world right now is mostly manual. A lot of our customers are doing this in the manual process, or they're looking into a product which is really expensive. The legacy IGA products are really expensive, not just for license, because it's pretty good code. I've taken training them and all that, but for deployment, it's ludicrously expensive. And why is it so expensive? Watch this. Next. The traditional way, if I took 10 engineers in a room, David was an engineer with me over at when we were over in Integrity. It took 10 David and Garrett's in a room, and we said, you know, we're going to build. Let's build an IGA product. The standard way to do it is to say, let's start coding. Let's start writing agents. That's the way we, the Garretts of the world, been doing this for the last 20 years. You start with the agent. You start writing lots of them. Okay, and that's millions of dollars. Okay, and the support. Oh, geez, let Okta take that on. Next. This is the right way to do identity and identity governance going forward. Pick a platform. Like I said, I had the choice of choosing which platform to write this stuff into. We chose Okta because its functionality, its ease of deployment, and its commitment to features that benefit the community. And I mean that. Okay, so what we did is said, if these data collectors exist, what is needed is governance. And that's what Austin was showing his demo. But we built our hooks into one platform, which then takes the data that we need for the governance reports. Next. Time for a demo. Bring it home, Austin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Garrett and David. So as Garrett was outlining, we really want to be able to capture these changes when they happen and compile them. So when we're actually producing that audit, we have a set of reports that we could, quantify the change. And so what I'm going to be showing over here in YouAttest, I'm going to be showing how to create these triggers, and then in Okta, what they look like, I'm going to make some changes in Okta so then we can see what's then created in YouAttest. I see some questions coming in. That's great. Feel free to continue to type those in through this section as well. But right here, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to event triggers. I'm going to go to create a trigger. And so we'll simply just name this. So we want to maybe have this be monitoring a domain admin account. And so we are going to then select the API source. So this is just which Okta environment you want. Now at this step, we could add a condition. And so these are all the different types of conditions we could add. If you select one of these conditions, there's going to be more conditions that you could select going forward. So what I did right there, I'm going to select a group event. And then we're going to say, if a user is added to a group, we want to be notified. But more importantly, we want to know which group this is. So if we leave this empty, it's going to create a report. It's going to create an alert for every single group that you have. If you want to specify, no problem. We could just enter in which group. We're going to select domain admins monitoring. We want to keep track of when anyone's added to that. Now at this point, we have a couple options. This is the action. So we created the trigger. Now we're moving on to how do we want to be notified and who should be notified. By checking this box, we're going to create something that's assigned to, we'll just select an Okta group right here. We'll just enter in, maybe we want the domain admins to receive this notification. On these next steps, we could select individual email alerts to go out. So not only will a campaign be created and someone will be alerted, but you could actually create an email alert. So if you want to catch a change that happens in real time, you could certainly do so by this. You would just enter in the group like we did above. Here's just another example. And then you could select the critical level. So we have a couple of different security levels right here, critical, warning, and info. All this is going to do is on the email that they receive, it's going to put that header up there. Whether that's warning, critical, or info, it'll title it with that. Finally, if you'd like to, you could add this to individual users as well. So say someone isn't captured in this group or someone isn't captured as a manager, you can enter this, and then all you would have to do is enter in an email address manually. I'm going to click Save this trigger right here. And so what we've just done is we have created a trigger that's going to capture when someone is added to our domain admins monitor group. So going back over here into Okta, if we want to actually see where this was created, we'll go into workflow and event hooks. And you could see we have our monitor domain admin account trigger. It's been created. Now actually setting off this trigger, let's go into directories and groups. We're going to go into our domain admins monitoring group right here. And I'm going to manage people. So let's add someone to it to set off this trigger. We're going to add user 4 right here. I'm going to click add and then save. And so now that this has taken place, if we go back over to YouAttest and we go into our campaigns, what's happened is go to our event audits, scroll down right here, click into the most recent one. You can see we have received a report that this user has been added to a group. And at this point, going back to the step who we assign this to, they would be responsible for then reviewing this and either certifying or revoking this action. And so now you're capturing a report, but more importantly, you're notifying the right people that something has taken place, something has changed, and they are signing off on it. So you're having an accurate report with the actions of the people who are responsible for reviewing it. We'll go back over here.
Yeah. And that's it, guys. The key point that Austin said at the end, he showed all the functionality, is a report is generated, a record of not just the change, but you can put notes in why the change was made and who approved the change. Okay. That's what my friends, us, the auditors want. Okay, sum it up. There you go. You install Okta and YouAttest. Okta is working. It's got the connections to all your data sources and your web resources, etc., web and non-web. You turn on the YouAttest trigger system, right? Then you're getting these triggers, the reports are made, and then at the end, you just say, okay, auditor, these are the changes, let's review. And the value is Okta plus YouAttest, lower risk and much, much cheaper audits. We did a TCO webinar just last one. You can check it out or we'll run the tool for you. And we pretty much showed that in your first IT access audit, you pretty much pay for our license. And you're like, well, that's got to be a pretty reasonably priced tool. Take it away, Austin. Next slide. It is ludicrously reasonably priced. What we sometimes forget to mention on these wonderful webinars and talks is this is 100% cloud-based. The integration is app SSO. Me and David know a little about that stuff, okay? Been in this industry for a long time. So it's just literally using SAML or OIDC, integrates into your Okta tenant. So there's literally no deployment in it. Most of our deployments, and the license price is unbelievably competitive in the IGA space. Okay, let's take those questions, Mr. Austin.
Excellent. Let me just pull these up. Okay, so our first question is around, does this platform work as a batch or online notification trigger? And this came in a little bit earlier. So I feel like, David, do you feel comfortable answering that question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take that one. And I would say it's real time. It's not batch. When an event, a detectable event happens in Okta, it's doing that a call out in real time. That trigger happens in real time to kick off a process.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Here we have another one that came in. Does Okta have a built-in process and identify prior to access overrides who can approve? What I'm asking is, can the approver be an override?
I'll take that one again. If something is being requested through Okta, that Okta administrator or that Okta approver can approve it or can delegate it. I think it's important, and I see a couple questions coming in here about overrides. So I'm actually going to jump this right into the second question. You know, a lot of what we're talking about here, they may be overrides, but the majority of things are going to be, you know, something that didn't require an override. You know, this was valid access. This is everyday access. This is access that people need. Very often, though, it's access that was needed, but only on a temporary basis. So that very frequently happens as the access isn't removed. So I think it's important we you know, put a box around overrides and what it means to actually do an override. But in any case, yeah, if the access is requested through Okta, you can approve it. You can delegate it to somebody else if it's not something that you're supposed to be approving.
Excellent, excellent. And so now we have another question. Would this be in place of an ACR, or does it have the ability to do a schedule ACR process? So, David, do you mind taking this, or Garrett?
Yeah, either one. So
I wonder what you mean. Are we talking like access review?
Yeah, a specific type of access review.
Yes, it looks like it.
Start with your answer, David. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just say that, you know, Okta within itself is not doing access reviews, so Okta is not going to replace any of these. So it is something that is being done externally with YouAttest.
That is what we exist for. PR.ac-4 IT access reviews. That's NIST, and that's great. It was a great question. Your access review is done, and I saw some of the questions. Watch where this one goes. It was not only we do the static access reviews, right? Which is, I just come on, I want to do an access review. What we've shown you today is that we can be triggered to do an access review. And then the question was, what about scheduled access reviews, which is literally what we're releasing right now and is our next webinar. So great question. And that's what we have, all three of those capabilities. Access reviews, static, which is I come to the situation right now and I do an access review, rock and roll, that's happened. Triggered access reviews, which is when an event occurs, which is what David was talking about. We're pulling those events from Okta. And then the last one, which is scheduled, automatic scheduling. That's exactly what we are releasing. Yes, 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 and yes.
Yes, absolutely. We have one coming in and said, I heard David mention lifecycle management. Can you go into this a little bit more? Someone's looking into this, it looks like.
Yeah, definitely. So the Okta integration network, as I mentioned, when we were going through all of the functionality before, is 7,000 integrations. Many of those support full user lifecycle provisioning. So create, read, update, delete. All of our documentation is public. Just go to okta.com/integrations and you can look and see which ones support provisioning right out of the box. Yeah, so again, it's full user lifecycle management. And depending on the application, the more popular ones, take your choice there. Office 365, whatever it is, also includes role management, what type of license management, what type of license does this user get? So yeah, full user lifecycle management. As well as we also have what we call advanced lifecycle management, which is a full workflow engine. So anything that's happening within Okta can be triggered as part of a new user event, a user change event, and we have connectors into all of the popular applications out in the cloud as well. So when a new user comes into Okta, based on certain criteria you set in a workflow, they may get a box account, they may get certain folders, they may get certain groups. So yeah, full user lifecycle management.
Thank you so much, David. I see a couple questions coming in just about the running of YouAttest and the deployment time. So I want to make sure I answer these. YouAttest is extremely easy to set up and integrate with Okta. It takes anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes. All you have to do is provide the API key, a token, and name your connection, and that's it. So you can start running an access review in a couple minutes alone. But good questions. There's a lot more coming in, so let's get to these. Garrett, if you feel free to add anything on top of that, but
no, that was it. The key point Austin stated was the API keys. If I say the word API, a lot of people trigger their brains and go, oh, I got to hire programmers. No, Okta has an amazing system that says what you can do is Okta and your tenant, here's your API keys. We took those keys and then coded all what you just saw Austin show, right? There is no coding for you. The integration, there's no coding either because we use Okta's API keys and us to integrate either SAML or OIDC. And that's why we say we are Okta verified. That's what's been verified.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have here, how does Okta work if my identities are in ADFS? David, I think that's great for you.
Yeah, I'll take that. So if your identities are in Active Directory sitting behind your Active Directory Federation server, Okta has full integration with that Active Directory. So the short answer is Okta can do everything ADFS is doing by linking up with the users in Active Directory and providing all of those federation services and all of those access policies. So Okta can do all of that. And in the real world, what typically happens is users want to move away from ADFS. It's an on-premise solution. It's a lot of management. And so we can help them do that by giving them a path. And that path involves hooking up to the same Active Directory so we see those users. And applications can slowly be moved from doing federation powered by ADFS to doing a federated login through Okta. So Okta becomes your identity provider. And they can sit side by side. If you have internal applications that are using ADFS and they want to continue to use ADFS for the near future, that's fine, that's great. What we typically see is that people will start migrating the external applications to Okta. So Okta, again, sees that same user community. We have a lightweight Active Directory agent. We have full read-write ability into Active Directory. We see the group memberships, everything that ADFS does, but Okta is providing that as an out-of-the-box SaaS application that does not have all of the overhead that ADFS has, and we give you that path to migration because applications are moved from ADFS into the Okta Federation infrastructure.
Thanks so much for that. I'll throw another question at you. And so we have, I know Okta has SSO and 2FA, but how much provisioning of users can I do with Okta?
Yeah, so it's as much or as little as meets your requirements. So a day one deployment of Okta is typically just single sign-on. And then what Okta is doing is the Okta integration network, all of those connectors I talked about. Okta will go out and find all of your users in your cloud application, Salesforce, Box, Office 365, whatever it is. It'll find all of your on-premise users that exist in your domains, your directories. And then it will create a user profile, and a user can log in through a single launchpad, a single Okta launchpad. And they have a huge value add there. They have a single place to go. You can control access. You can do your access reviews for all of that access. And then typically what happens is a small amount of provisioning will slowly be introduced. And typically it's day one provisioning. So when a new user comes into the Okta environment, typically through a help desk or an HR feed, Okta will begin to create those day one accounts. And again, go to okta.com/integrations. You can see which ones support provisioning, and you can roll them out as meet your requirements to do more and more provisioning with Okta. So again, you don't have to do any. You could just use it as a single sign-on portal and then start to use those provisioning integrations because they're so easy to use and they allow you to create a policy in a single place about what users should have access to.
And Austin, let's do 2 more.
Okay, perfect. So this one's just talking about when an override is in effect, there's a reason for a change that must be given within YouAttest. The question is, must a verbal reason for the change be given? And so what I think that's asking is, when we are actually attesting and we're saying certify, revoke to the change that took place, a note does not have to be added. Now, if this is something that you require for your system, we could definitely set that up where we make that a requirement field. But right now, if you're, the manager goes in there and just certifies or revokes that change, it doesn't have to fill out a note field as well in there.
I like the question that it says, no, we don't want it. I just say, in you run your system however you want. Austin and I and the director of engineer, our friend Tahir, were on with an auditor, and he said, hey, this is a field that I want to see, the external auditor. So completely answered correctly, do it the way you want. But that's what sometimes the external auditors are seeking.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a couple questions, but let's send this one over to David. So we have, does Okta work with multiple domains and how?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the real strengths of using Okta is the Okta lightweight AD agent can be deployed on as many domains as you have. And those can be, traditional Active Directory domains that are on premise. It can be Office 365 domains. And all of those are managed through our universal directory. So it's very easy to map which attributes from each domain roll into a single identity. So, if you're working through a merger and acquisition and you have multiple domains coming together, or if you have multiple business units, the Okta Universal Directory allows you to create a single identity for that user. Our lightweight AD agents are talking to all of your different domains, and our profile editor and mapping capabilities allow you to build a single identity by pulling the piece parts from each domain that you need to create a single unified identity.
I think it's a great way to sum it up there, David, especially with that other question about ADFS, is that's what you do with Okta. You create your unified cloud directory. And that's why we built YouAttest into there. All right. Hey, thanks a lot, David. Last thing for you, can you tell the audience how if they got direct questions for you? And we'll pass them out if you guys write them to us. But yes.
Absolutely. David.Barrish@okta.com, and happy to speak with you.
Fantastic. All right. All the best. And we'll follow up with presentations and videos we posted. Right, Austin?
Absolutely. Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot. All the best.
Thank you. Take care.